today we're going to be painting an owl stake for the garden. So before we even start, the first step that I did is I took a pencil and I drew some eyes, I outlined the wings and made a beak for the owl. This will allow just for a little bit easier painting when we start painting. Once you have your lines finished, the first step I like to take is I will paint my eyes. Now I gave you a whole bunch of colors, but you could use whatever colors you'd like. If you have more, these are acrylic or craft paints. So if you have more of those at home, go for it. So I am just painting like the outside of my eye, and I am going to leave the middle like blank because we'll paint it black eventually. So I am just taking yellow, painting the outside of my eye. I'm using my bigger brush. If you feel more comfortable with your small brush, go for it. Once I'm finished with those eyes, I washed and dried my brush, and now I'm just gonna go into the ears and just add a tiny bit of white into the ears. Once we do that, I'm gonna then move on to painting my owl. So I'm just painting my owl a basic brown. I'm not even gonna wash my brush initially. I'm just going to paint it brown. I am gonna take my time, go around like my ears, my eyes, my beak, and my wings. I'm also gonna try and do the edges when I am painting. Just if you do the edges, it'll give it like a nice finished look. So I'm just going in with brown, and once again, you could use whatever colors you'd like. I'm going in with brown and doing the body of my owl. As I'm painting my head and my paint is still wet, I'm going to add a little white in between the eyes to give it like a furry texture in between to represent like some of the feathers that are above its eyes. I'm just going to take like small little strokes. I am using my big brush, but if you feel more comfortable with your small brush, go for it. And that's just going to give the paint a little texture. I'm going in and going over those ears again as well. Once the body is finished, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm actually going to use my small brush to outline those, like the pupils of his eyes. So I'm just taking a little bit of black paint and taking my time, outlining it, and then filling it in. Once those eyes are finished, I'm going to let them dry a little bit, and I'm going to make some orange for my beak and my feet. So to make orange, it's a lot of yellow and a little bit of red. So once you have that orange, you could use the caps of your paints to mix it. I also like adding a teeny bit of white in there. Once you have that orange, you could paint your beak and your feet. On to wings now. To do the wings, I made like a light shade of brown. So I added on like a cap, you put some white and just a teeny bit of brown. And I am just going to paint those wings. Taking my time to stay in those lines, I'm using my big brush. We're going to go back and give the wings texture once they dry for a couple seconds. Now for texture, I'm just using my original brown, and I'm going to go back in and add some short strokes of brown to both my wings. The paint should be wet, so it should blend a little bit. And it's just so the paint isn't so flat, one-dimensional. The more color, the more texture, the more interesting. So then I'm also going to add texture. I'm not even going to wash my brush. I have a mix of light and dark brown on my brush. I'm going to add little dash marks almost to the belly of the owl to give it some texture, represent feathers. I am just going to go in, once I have my tan, I'm just going to go in with a bunch of colors. You could do whatever colors you used. I have a little gray on my brush, so I'm going to make a little gray. Put some gray feathers in. You could do whatever colors you'd like and just keep on layering different dash marks to get different textures. One of the last steps I like to take is put a little light reflection in each of the eyes. I'm using my small brush and I'm just taking a little white. You want to make sure your black is mostly dried. And I made a line and then a little dot on the right side of each eye. Once you're finished with those pupils, I like to add some color. I like to add some white streaks into the colored section of my eye, as well as the top of my beak and my wings. But at this time, you could add any details that you'd like. You could also paint the garden stake that is attached to your owl. But once everything is painted, give it some time to dry and then it's ready for the garden.